Welcome to the Natural Genius podcast. We're here to help you tap into your natural genius. Let's go. I've got a great early story as to how Iris Ray Nunn and I met. Our dear friend Kimberly Pegg and her dear friend of 3 generations, Megan Kuhn, was on the front lines of activism in Australia with Iris. Megan heard Iris had written a book. Kimberly sent me that book. I read it cover to cover very quickly, contacted Iris and said, could you please send this fabulous book to the 11 people that came to mind. She was good enough to put many packages with handwritten notes. And then the next time I was in her neighbourhood in southern Queensland, we caught up for a walk through a forest for a day and developed this friendship that has gotten deeper and deeply loving towards each other for many years. Her business, Deep Listening to Nature, is a fantastic organisation to get involved in. She takes people into the forest and helps them to deeply listen. She's one of those people that puts in ideas, concept, learning, some Indigenous insight, then quietens down and lets you take the reins. And I think when I do self-growth work, it's great when somebody steps back and lets me lead. There'll be a lot of mutual love going on in this conversation, I dare say. Here's Iris Ray Nunn. Iris Ray Nunn, my gorgeous friend, welcome to the Natural Genius podcast.
Thank you, Sammy. I'm happy to be here talking with you.
So one of the questions that came up at the very beginning is a very good place to start. Is what did you love about being a child?
I had such a great childhood. I grew up barefoot in the Gap. I don't know if you know The Boy Who Swallowed the Universe. And he had a hard upbringing, the boy, and he was always wanting to be one of the Gap kids. This is in the 80s. He talks about that in that famous book. Yeah. He wanted to be one of the Gap kids because whenever he visited his relatives, they were all riding around on their bikes free, and that was us. I was a Gap kid. We were free. We had an amazing creek, Enoggera Creek, down the road, right down the end of the street. And I watched that creek through so many seasons, Sammy, and I played in that creek, with my friends, with my brother and sister, with my cousins. I spent a lot of time there. So I loved being in water. I loved watching water. We also would go camping a lot in the mountains and by the beach. My parents had a caravan and Mum was a school teacher, so we spent many, many weeks on the summer holidays camping by the beach in a caravan, and in the annex of the caravan. I still remember all the smells of the canvas and the bunk beds and the sounds of the birds in the Melaleuca swamp out the back. In fact, we camped at Perugian, which I think you might be there right now.
You're calling in from there right now.
What an amazing place. I mean, so sacred. And then, dogs were a big part of my childhood, animals and horse riding. Yeah, and I feel like, the dogs and the horses are they're like a doorway to the animal world. So they've been domesticated, but they've still got that that little wild streak. And so I just could not get enough dogs and horses, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, both sets of grandparents, and I just loved being with my grandparents, and I loved being with all the animals everybody had, So I was the horses and the dogs, and we also had the little wild animals that would wander in to our home here. And snakes, because we were right on the edge of Diagula National Park. So there were echidnas and there were red belly black snakes. And Yeah, and I was an activist early, Sam. I know you haven't asked me that question, but I was always really concerned about the cane toads in Queensland. And I used to watch Harry Butler in the Wild on TV. And I remember him saying that we had to watch for cane toads and development, that there would be the two things in Queensland that would really desecrate the wildlife. And, you know, that's something that, you know, really did come true. So, yeah, I had a great childhood.
And I love hearing about that. I love hearing about the creek and the freedom, the bikes, riding your bike around, and I think that connection to animals is lovely in you as well, Iris. And with mum and dad being keen bushwalkers and enjoying the outdoors, when that red-bellied black snake appeared, what was the advice? Or did they not know?
Well, I remember one snake that came into the house and Dad did chop that up, and I was horrified.
Oh, sweetheart. Sorry to bring that up.
Yeah, I was horrified. And in fact, you know, my parents knew that I was really sensitive because, you know, I would see things die and it would just be you know, very deeply. I feel it very deeply. And I have a daughter who's exactly the same, you know, and they trusted the bush, you know, because they showed us how to trust the bush by being in it, by being adventurous, by being open, by going onto the tracks and going and exploring places within a national park, mostly within a national park. I mean, we also, Mum actually just told me, she only told me this about 2 weeks ago. She brought out this old photo because we were camping, my partner and I camping on our bush block that we've bought just recently in Moreton Bay. And she brought out a photo of a block up near Coolum that her family owned, and she said, "Oh, we just put up a canvas tent that my dad made. You know, he made the poles and they sewed the canvas. My grandma was a sewer." And she said, and we just had, you know, a hole in the ground for the toilet, and we camped on our bush block too. So, you know, I was like,
amazing.
My mum's heritage is from the bush, and my dad's heritage, they're farmers.
What a combination. I have this very dear friend that lives in Coolum and has done through the years, and I think he's in his 70s now. And he's shown me this book that he's actually in, and it is the old photos of Coolum and when it used to just be a general store, and he can tell stories around the development of Coolum, and I'm sure the council would not be that happy right now with that hole in the ground.
No. I know.
But the photos are wonderful to sort of see those times gone by with no development, and obviously now there's lots of high rises, and it's a really favoured holiday destination, isn't it? South of where
you know, I was in Perugian in Noosa area in the 70s. I was in the 80s and the 90s, and same with Byron Bay. You know, it was just like one main shop really in town, a supermarket, and I mean, you know, the F&C pizza and the hardware and things. But we didn't have a lot of population in Australia. You know, we didn't know any different. Brisbane was just like a big country town when I grew up. And now it's a very wonderful multicultural place, which I think is fantastic. We were really lucky to see some of these places. And also, oh my God, again, the wildlife, Sammy. I remember just so many shorebirds, so many. My mum and I used to count the little tiny terns, you know, down in Byron. Like there'd be hundreds of them. And now we've got, you know, maybe 20% less, 20% left of the shorebirds, you know, in such a short amount of time. So much of the development has really pushed out and affected the natural world, and because development has not been made with, you know, caring in mind. It's been made with, you know, the most efficient, effective and cost-effective way of doing things. So things are just mowed down. Nature's mowed down for developments to go up, and I hope that we can really, really change that in the future and really bring in a lot more awareness that the community isn't just people, that community is the wildlife that we live with, and that's their home, you know, that's their place, that's their habitat. How do we build around making room, much, much more room for nature?
Oh, Iris, I want to say tell me more. And also, I'd love to hear the connection or the depth that you have, or extra depth that you have from having been a guide at Uluru in more recent times. And that connection to nature, I can only imagine it's strengthened and deepened. And that combined with the activism work that you've done and the time that you have spent in nature, tell me more around all of that.
Well, I think a good place to start is to share some really important piece of wisdom that a Lakota chief shared with me and a group of very lucky listeners when I went into Pine Ridge Reservation in 2016 and was invited into a Yuwipi ceremony with a small amount of Australians, including a ngangkari from Arnhem Land, who I had the honour of being able to take over to Pahasapa, the Black Hills of South Dakota, and to meet with the Lakota women.
And
so
tell me, so ngangkari, do we say
ngangkari? Healer, a traditional healer in Aboriginal culture. They're also known as like the Kadaicha men, the feathered foots. There's a few different words from them throughout different tribes of Australia. So the ngangkari is a healer like the Yuwipi man, and they communicate with their ancestors, and they bring healing cures and direction for their people, and they're always staying in tune with the health of the community. And so his name is Chief Basil Braveheart, and he was a retired Yuwipi man, and Yuwipi is a ceremony that takes place in the dark because the Lakota recognize that the frequency of the dark is one in which they are able to communicate very clearly with their ancestors. And I'm not an authority at all of that information. It's just people can find out more. It's a profound thing that happened in my life that I'm still integrating. So Chief Basil Braveheart said something that totally rang true for me. He said, there comes a time where you remember that you've forgotten what you once knew. And so that was happening for me. I was remembering that I once knew how to talk very intimately with nature, that it was a natural relationship, just like with me and you and me and my lover and me and my dogs and me and my parents, you know, that actually listening and hearing nature's affectionate words and loving guidance was a natural part of me, and I'd forgotten how to hear. I'd shut the channel off. And so that was really when it was all starting to come together. It was like I was just like a dog at a bone, you know. It's like, I have to wake this up. I have to wake this up again. And my childhood was like a huge place to return to. The water, which is like most powerful element on the planet. And then it was, I think, probably just a natural series of events that led me to the Aṉangu at Uluru and Kulini, listening to, you know, to learn what their wisdom is ultimately, is to learn their language. So I'm learning Pitjantjatjara, Pitjantjatjara, which means a little bit, but they teach me, the Aṉangu teach me at Uluru, and they're very patient with me, mostly. Sometimes they get a bit cross, but their language is directly about what's happening right now in an interconnected culture. So they are a listening culture. So I'm really blessed to have a life calling, a life purpose that is taken me to Uluru and to one of the most insanely powerful places on earth, and to listen to these incredibly delightful people and who have been through so much, and to walk with them and to support them as much as I possibly can. And the bigger goal of Parks Australia, to preserve, and the bigger goal of those people who care in Australia, to preserve this very, 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 very unique and very, very precious Chukopa culture and people. They are the culture. They are the people. And, you know, interestingly, Sammy, the Aṉangu, and this is just something that is really starting to make more sense to me, the more that I'm with nature and the more that I'm with the Aṉangu, the more that I'm in this work of deep listening. This is my field of work, deep listening, is that the Aṉangu are descendants of plants. They're descendants of dingoes. They're descendants of mulga trees. You know, they're descendants of lizards. They're descendants of kangaroos, of wallabies. Normal. It's totally normal. They're our chokoracha. They're our ancestors. And when you think about it, you know, humans apparently, if you looked at the earth as 1 year of being created, you know, 13 billion years of creation. But if you put in 1 year, apparently humans have just arrived like an hour ago, something like that, you know, whereas all the trees and the insects, the dragonflies, you know, the sharks, the whales, they've been here for so long. So to know that you're a descendant of the animal world and the plant world, you know, that's very smart. That's very smart. That's very complex, but it's also very simple. So it helps you know that you're connected naturally and that they're your family.
You are divine, my friend. So many
Looking
questions.
right at you.
So many questions.
Looking right at you.
Oh, darling, it's lovely. It's lovely to hear more wisdom. I feel like in this time of AI being such a conversation topic, that I've always thought that AI is going to bring out other wisdom. And I can see that from a technology point of view, from how Google serves up information and how the AI models work. And it feels like Iris's unique wisdom and what you have learned from your experience, not just at Uluru, at other places. But that sort of thing is coming out. So that's part of my pleasure in hearing you talk about what you've learned. There's another aspect of some of the conversations that we've had about Uluru. And I wanted to dive into two aspects. One is you call Uluru, as many do, a very sacred place on this planet. And I've been lucky enough to be in lots of amazing sacred places around the world. And I still, the profundity and the not being able to describe certain aspects of it. Like I remember you and I, when you were living right next to the rock at Uluru, and we did a FaceTime, and it was the first time I've seen Uluru in a long time, and I burst into tears, and I could not explain that. And I feel like, thank you for bringing in a sacred site into the conversation and into this podcast, because so much of it is indescribable. And you've got all these amazing stories about things that have happened to people that you just can't explain. The other thing that I wanted to bring into the conversation to hear more from you is you say that the Aṉangu, the local people, are very much in time, like they are in the moment. They're a listening culture, as you just said. And you're an amazing bridge and communicator and explainer and guide, obviously working there as a guide as well, and being connected to the community. You're an amazing explainer of being in the present moment and what you've learnt from being around the Aṉangu. So I'm just throwing those topics in. I'd love to hear more of what you have to say around those.
I don't think that Western culture inspires safety around change. It inspires fear around change. Western culture inspires to have something that you get secure about and stick with it and try to stay there. It doesn't inspire big, actual, natural facts that we are a transforming organic being. And so how our mind thinks, how our heart grows, how our legs strengthen or weaken with changes and movement with our hips as a woman, they expand. Like, we're actually a changing, transforming, constantly moving organic creature. And so a lot of the problems and troubles and predicament are from that suffering that is created from wanting things to stay the same, but nothing stays the same. And so sacred places can wake a person up, no matter what level of consciousness they're actually wanting to inspire, I guess. Whether you're out there just wanting to, as people say, tick off going to Uluru on their bucket list, which, but they do, and they want to walk around the base, and they know something's happening to them, but they just can't put it into words. Or you may be there going, I just really, really need to just remember again that there's a bigger flow, and I need to stop trying to control my life so much. And these are these places, sacred places on earth, and Uluru is one of these incredible places where change and transformation and hundreds of millions of years is just right there in front of you. And so I'm a part of all that. I am an intricate part of all that. And that is the remembering. I've forgotten. Oh my gosh, I remember. Also, what is true about sacred sites, they may be mineral rich places, they may be where big rivers meet, they may be where enormous waterfalls or oceans come right into the land mass. Like there's these sacred places on earth where the earth-based cultural people who have never left their interconnectedness, they can see that the sacredness goes all the way to the sky, you know, and all the way down through the earth. So, you know, just a little side stream to think about is that when a traditional person from their country here in Australia welcome you to country, they're not just saying we're welcoming you here to this land. This land goes all the way up and it goes all the way down. We're responsible for all of it, you know? And so the sacred sites are almost, they're actual places where these wise elders that I've met in my life, very, very, very fortunate to have met them, South American elders, North American elders, Australian Aboriginal elders, they say that the spirit world is right there above these sacred sites and right there below these sacred sites. Like you can see into these places. So often really sensitive people or who have got maybe an activation in a sixth sense, they're intuitive people, they've maybe had parents that really preserved their sensitivity and didn't knock it out of them. They had good schooling, you know, and they actually can look and see into these spirit worlds, and it's normal. It's absolutely normal. Like for the Aṉangu, for you to see the ancestors, for you to see the, you know, the changing shapes of the trees into animals, into rocks, into ancestors, they're normal. It's totally normal for them. So, and these beings that they see are part of this big, big, big sacred place. And so, yeah, it's like some people might say a portal, or you may just have a very beautiful feeling like your grandmother is with you, you know, there's an ancestor you haven't thought of, or your mother might have passed, your father might have passed away, and suddenly you feel like they're right there and they're loving you. That's Uluru. And that's other sacred places as well on the planet. So you kind of step into this big energy and the truth of my inclusivity, I'm included in all this. I'm a part of the stars. I'm a part of the water. I'm a part of this red rock. I'm friends with the little tiny lizards. You know, all of it is family, and all of it is a belonging, and it all transforms. There's no death. You know, it's just constantly changing and moving. And so don't be afraid, just enjoy. So insights come to people out there. Insights, you know what I mean? An insight. I'm looking for an insight to help kind of pry open my closed mind. And then there'll be this beautiful like breath in, and I get this, my mind opens and I'm having an insight into the predicament. There's the guidance. This is what I really need to bring more into my life. I get it. And then there's the disciplines. You know, that's where law is a really important force to meditate on. Law. It's not enough just to have an insight. It has to then be, whoa, I have to actually really change some of my internal patterns here. I have to change some way I've been thinking. My insight, you know, is showing me. Now I have to actually flex that muscle, practice, and not just slip back into the old finger pointing, blaming, I'm the victim, I'm not responsible, somebody else is, like all those like defeatist kind of truths that can actually they're not true, but they feel really true. So it's like these big places out in nature, these big, wonderful, transforming, constantly changing forces. I'm part of that. I can change too. And I can be revived, and I can start afresh, and I can repair, and I can restore, and I'm a part of this. And she's guiding me and holding me, showing me how to do it. And there's nothing to be afraid of in that transformative, timeless system.
in this conversation. It's one of the things that really just struck me is that on your retreats and even in the shorter walks that you do around Uluru, you would see people go through such a range of emotions. And if you're with them for a few days, to be able to hold those insights that you just described and to hold the open heart and the joy and all the other emotions, to be able to, what I've seen in you on retreat is this providing us simple and profound exercises and then backing off, backing away and letting the individual have their personal growth moment and developing. And that felt unique to me. And obviously with your business and methodology being called deep listening to nature, I think that to hear you talk about people having all different kinds of experiences and all different kinds of emotions, it's just amazing work that you do.
You know, Sammy, I heard nature speak to me in 2007 in a valley behind Mullumbimby in my beautiful little rainforest property. And it was so magnificent. And I would be very regularly telling nature how beautiful she was, because she was just amazing. Big fig tree. I had a creek, cascading little waterfalls, enormous granite boulders, big old avocado tree, lots of little wrens and wildlife and whipbirds and, you know, wampu pigeons. And I would just go, I love you. I love you. Oh, God, I love you. It's so beautiful. You know, it's just natural because it was just so magnificent. You know, it's not hard to find magnificence in the world. Just look at nature. And it was just one day I said, I love you. And she spoke to me as clear as day. And she said, I love you too. And to have that moment, everything changed from that moment. My devotion just went off the Richter scale. You know, I heard her, and then it took me. It's funny now I think about it, but it's also respectful of that whole transforming, they're moving and changing one lifetime into the next. Who knows? But it doesn't matter about time. Actually, that's where the fear can come in. Just relax into the timelessness. It was 7 years until I knew where she spoke to me from, because I was always like, where did the voice come from? Like, how do I hear it again? You know, it was 7 years until I was awake with the practice and being deep listening to nature, connecting in intricately and practicing listening. She spoke to me from inside of me, you know. And so in 2016, I was at a place called Purlingbrook, Lamington National Park, behind the Gold Coast. And I was with my daughter and my goddaughter, the two 16-year-olds. And I do believe their presence also was a part of this moment. They're a very important part. And my brother, and Mother Nature said to me, bring the people to me and I will do the rest. And that's where it started to form, the walking in places that I love, taking them to the trails and the tracks that I walked on as a child, or my parents walked and they carried me, you know, these places that have been my friends for many, 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 probably lifetimes. And so I started by taking people overnight to Binabara, up to the Bunya Mountains. I just said, just come, you know, I would just pay for the cost of the camping and just come with me and see if you'd like to learn about this practice of connecting more deeply. It does require a willingness to be still, to go slow, to listen. And I have a couple of really powerful exercises to help put these beautiful hemispheres of our brain together in a balanced way, and to use language also that actually is not linear, that is holistic, holographic language, so that I'm connecting in, and it very quickly very quickly. It's getting quicker and quicker. So this is nearly 10 years of walking in nature connection practices with people, small groups, large groups, overnights, longer retreats, and very quickly now I'm feeling people are just dropping in. They just wake up really quickly, like where it's like they came in asleep or something and they were hurting, and then they're just very quickly, Sammy. There's the feelings of the joy and the I'm home, I'm hearing again, I'm smelling again, I'm seeing again, I'm feeling again. I'm here and I belong. And I feel like maybe that beautiful part of what you said before that I'm really honored, and it's a compliment, that it's like I'm here listening together with you all. There's no leader here that is hierarchical. It's a circle. We're all remembering together. And, it is a together time now. The Aṉangu call it jungo. Pirampa Aṉangu jungo, together. We have to be together. You can't have one person go ahead anymore. It just doesn't. We have to all go together and evolve together. So we have to do and share our gifts together and just wait. Nature's waited for us for so long. We can be patient too, right?
This moment is about your natural genius. If there's a spark within you that wants to develop a lighter way, a clearer signal to achieve more, I'd like to work with you one-on-one. If you're after inspired direction in what you have to give, get in touch with me via our website, naturalgenius.com.au. Now back to the natural genius. Tell me about the process of writing a book, darling, and what it brought to you.
My dad was definitely on my mind when I started to write my book, because I thought, what is he going to think about me after he reads it? I think there's a story I needed to tell about making love to an Aboriginal man on the lawns of Parliament House, in the dark. There's nobody there, like it was dark, but like to find me and break free, Sammy. This book was about not only the experience of breaking free, but then writing about the experience and actually telling the world honestly about this experience. Some of the things that I did to find my wild free spirit again, and to trust that wild free spirit again, and trust that Mother Nature within me again, required some, nature, life took me on these wild adventures. And one of them was to camp at the Aboriginal Tent Embassy in Canberra on the 40th anniversary of, the land rights movement. And to see how much I didn't know about our true history, I could cry. It's just like, oh my God, what I was taught in school, what I wasn't taught in school. And to be there with all these exceptional people at that spot, I had to tell that story, and that was one of them. But what would my dad think? I was there the year before with my parents in the Knights Hotel, and we went to the War Memorial, and we went to the art gallery, and we did all those gorgeous things that you do as a tourist in Canberra the year before, and then suddenly my world just kind of turned into this wild adventure. It was calling me. It wasn't sudden. It felt like it. So the book itself is about me freeing myself and returning back to my trust in nature and how I freed myself. But it's also about the wisdom that I learned along the way. I always was a journaling. And I recorded the wisdom from the elders from South America and North America, and almost word for word, their wisdom is written in the book, what they share about our connectedness to the earth and our need to take care of her now, and repair, and to bring the voice of the feminine out and to trust woman's voice. because she's deeply, deeply connected to nature as a birth giver, a life giver, a birther, and she's a transformer. So we need to hear the words of a woman. So these were men, wise men. You know, we'd call them shamans or holy men from South America, saying we need to hear the voice of woman. So I've written all that in the book to actually still have the, will I be rejected by my culture? Will I be rejected by my family? You know, when they read this, was loud. So I've heard fear come out as internal criticism. You know, the real fear was hidden. The real fear of what would my father say, really. That was it. You know, and then what would the bigger community say? Will I be accepted? Will I be rejected? That big fear wasn't really one that I was conscious of. The fear came out in, you're not a good writer, you can't even really spell, you are, what kind of style is this book? You know, I had a lot of little words and little judgments and little criticism. But what I found out during the creative process was that you can outrun criticism. I outran it. I just kept going. I just kept going. And so when people go, God, how do you write the book? I want to write a book. It's like, you have to just write it. You have to just sit down, you have to go back, and you have to just keep writing, and you just have to keep writing. And even if that criticism is there, afraid of, you know, judgment or what are you doing, you just have to keep going and get the words out and get the story out, because I had something really deep that I needed to express. And so when it came time to actually edit before publishing it, I actually asked my dad to read it. I thought, no, I'm not going to wait until it's this final kind of copy and then it's all nice and presented and everything. I was like, I'm just going to go straight to the jugular. Hey, Dad, here's my draft. Read my book, you know, just. And, you know, he was saying things to my mum like, did you know this about our daughter? Did you know how powerful her dreams were? And did you know that she had all this experience with the Aboriginal people and the shamans from North America and South America? Would you know? And my mum's a little bit eye rolling. God bless her. She's like, oh, I don't know where you've been. But what I found was that I was guided to ask my father to write the foreword. And then I saw my mum get afraid for me. My mum get afraid. It was interesting. I was feeding off my mother's fear. You know how our bodies are so interconnected to our adults, our parents, you know, our children looking at the adults around us, and their cues, we're getting our cues from them. So I was able to watch my own mother's fear as well of what would happen what would my father write? And she was discouraging in that. But what I found, Sammy, is people have contacted me, strangers, and said, we're crying just reading the foreword.
Divine.
He says something like, if you would like to know your daughter, ask her to write a book, because I did not know my daughter until I read her story. It's been like another child that I birthed. There's a creativity. We as women and men can birth so many times in one lifetime and not even have children, you know. You grow it up, you let it go, you step back, you see where it goes. You let your creative dream take shape, because you don't know where it's going to go. It will keep growing and keep growing. And this book still keeps growing, you know, it still keeps. I sat next to a woman yesterday in a community gathering, never seen her in my life. And she said, are you Iris? I said, yeah. She's a young woman. And she said, oh my God, I read your book. And you know, and I think maybe only there's a couple of thousand copies out there, but actually that doesn't mean there's only 2,000 people who have read it. Books get circulated around and around, Sammy. And you've circulated my book with me, darling. Thank you. Overseas. I think yours was the first. Your order was the first for your friends overseas, was the first time the book went overseas. that was exciting.
I feel like in life we can all go through openings, personal growth. You've described the book really well as being one of those avenues for you.
Mm.
And what I've observed, being lucky enough to be a friend over years, is when you talk about the Aṉangu and present moment, you just help me to understand, like, the describing of fear. It's not present moment. So maybe the book was actually part of you getting deeper into the present moment so that you could connect with Aṉangu and you could understand from a place of experience what it's like to be in the present moment and to be living life in that way, because you had outrun the voice of criticism. And darling, that's just, as I've said to you before, that is magnificent, because there's so many aspects to that. There's so many moments of sitting at the computer or going deep to work out what to talk about, or editing, or asking your dad to do the foreword. Constant moments of courage to be able to get it out there and to be in conversation with people when they said that they've read it and you're like, well, gulp about a certain part, perhaps.
Yeah. I do feel humanity as a normal part of being me. You know, I do feel very sensitive to when the collective is scared, or the collective is restless, the collective is lonely, you know, or lost. And having the courage to go beyond the comfort zone, because the comfort zone is actually the dead zone. You know that, Sam.
I do, sweet.
Khalil Gibran, you know who wrote The Prophet? This amazing Lebanese man in New York. I think he took it 10 years to write this book. And he talks about houses, and houses are a classic comfort zone. Now, we definitely need shelter. Absolutely. But when one becomes only passionate about what the materialism in the house is about and how comfortable it is, and the next thing in the house that's going to be more comfortable, and then the next bit of the more comfortable, and the next technology that's more, you know what I mean? I mean, it's like, I don't know what, I only witnessed that, but it's not been my life experience. My experience is like, that's okay, it's good. That couch is practical. It's fine. I don't need the next one, the latest one, the upgrade one. I don't need the changing kind of trends so that it looks like something that keeps up with the magazines or something. It's not been a trap. Materialism has not been a trap that my lifetime has jumped into. I've walked on the edge of that. I'm lucky. I've wanted to have less. The caravans were my favorite place to be. And so Khalil Gibran, he says, verily, the lust for comfort murders the passion of the soul and walks grinning at the funeral. You know, that's it. That's it. You've got this really short life and you want to seek comfort, and you got this house and you mine, and you're shut off to the rest of the world, and I've got my comfort, but you're half, you know, I don't want to project onto anybody. I just know what it's like. You know, humanity can be not thinking that's going to be the way to happiness. It never is. And so it's like to go beyond fear and live out there in this present way is actually, the world is a whole different world when love and joy and kindness and communication and connectivity and inspiration and beauty and creativity, it's like, it's the force. It's like, that's pulsing. And that's right there. It's actually right there. I don't have to stay in threat and fear. I can, but it's kind of boring at the, you know, it becomes, and it's definitely where all the consuming is going on. It's definitely where all the sickness is going on that is unnecessary sickness. You know, we all get sick, even out there in the joyful world. It's a normal part of aging. It's not a part, but to actually have premature sickness and toxicity because fear is churning in on itself. Sammy, that's what I wanted to really mostly say, is that I feel, you know, a sense of sadness for the young ones, the old ones, and all of those of us in between who kind of switch on the fear program to start the day looking for comfort and looking for threats and pointing fingers and blame and all the reasons why I can't be happy or joyful, sad. So to be with the Aṉangu, where they have sometimes so very little, and to see them, they've got each other, and to see they're animals with so very little. They don't carry all this stuff around on their back, and they're in this flow that I believe we are naturally meant to be in. Is that a ramble? I hope not.
Oh gosh, not from my point of view. I feel like I mean, we can judge it if we want, but I don't feel like it.
Yes.
Tell me more about the joy and the sweetness that you experience around the Aṉangu, because our mutual dear friend Annie Barb was describing present moment stories from when she lived near Uluru. And many people haven't been around the Aṉangu to know that experience of being with them in present moment, in joy. So tell me, perhaps other elders or other Indigenous people you've been with as well, darling, tell me about being in that state and being by their side.
I think it is something that earth-based people have got as a natural state, because I see it in my partner who's got Polynesian background as well, where it's like actually things like eating food, cooking food on the fire, you know, catching food and lighting that fire, and then, you know, putting the toe in the water. I was very, very, very lucky to be invited with the children to the waterhole at Uluru when they went swimming, you know, and it's like this ability to be able to enjoy the natural world, enjoy the things that we have to do every day, you know, like feeding ourselves, feeding the dogs, and going outside, looking for the trees. Are they growing? Are the shoots red? You know, going to put the berries. What are the berries getting ripened? You know, and actually there in the natural world around, there's so much joy and excitement in the everyday things that we just do normally. Drinking the water, splashing the water in our face. Wow, it's raining. How exciting. I've watched the kids out there play in the mud after the rain. And I mean, kids all over our gift, and let our kids play in the mud in the rain. Let them play in the mud in the rain. And actually they're you know, they're also suffering from the truth of occupation, and I can't not acknowledge that. There's a lot of diet related illness, there's poverty. They have the Aṉangu in their culture share everything. So even if an auntie that I work with would get, you know, $300 from a tour with me, she has to share that with a lot of people. You know, it's just how it is. She has a great responsibility in her law and their uncles, but I work mostly with the women. But I know the uncles are the same. They have a lot more responsibility within their family system. So everything's spread and shared. I've even been with one auntie in Alice Springs, she's been in the front seat of my car eating, you know, a burger that I bought her because she didn't come in or get some food. She was hungry, and then she just said, stop the car. She saw one of her cousins, and she split the burger in half and handed half the burger to one of her cousins walking on the street. Always sharing. So there's that, we don't have much, but we'll share what we've got. There's joy in that, and that's humanity. So returning to those real basics, Semi, is what actually is the present. What are we eating? What are we cooking? What are we growing? How is it growing? Being together outside, and they're simple, but that's free. And it's also, so get the children outside. That's what I really want to encourage parents to do. Get yourselves outside as well. And everyone remembers, again, what matters when they're in nature. They remember what matters. And you see children come kind of almost back to life. They become almost like fairy-like, when children, and then also adults are like that too. I've seen you in the rainforest, and you look like, oh my God, you're just joyful. You're looking at the fungi. Remember we were up in the bunyas looking at the nice fungi after the rain, and then all the birds. Like I had a whip bird cacophony when I was up there last time, and I would like dozen whip birds, and all the boys and the girls, like the boys were going at the same time and the girls were whipping, the female and the male, and I'd never heard so many whip birds in one moment. And I tell you, any problem I had, gone.
Is there anything else that you would like to share?
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be able to speak like this. I feel so comfortable with you. I love you. And to have the opportunity to speak about nature, passionate about nature and connection, family, Indigenous culture. I feel like I come to it at the end of my book, and it's still very current. It's a spiritual crisis that I feel like we're actually facing on the planet right now. And if that question, am I living up to my highest calling, is asked, ask these bigger questions of ourselves, and also have a curiosity with our loved ones. Ask our elderly parents, our elderly grandparents. Ask our children, what do you want? What do you dream of? And listen and witness and be genuinely supportive of some of those more tender, vulnerable truths, because our young people, they may be sitting there not feeling safe to tell some of their deeper dreams and desires, because maybe they might get squashed, or maybe they won't be respected. But actually, if we allow the deep listening space as a natural part of our connection, and we listen with curiosity and we listen with respect, let's let each other come more forth with our true light and our glow, and actually believe that I can actually sing that song that's inside me and be actually embraced by my family and my community, and be supported to be all that I can be. So it starts not just with asking myself, am I living my highest calling? But also giving that listening channel a possibility with somebody like that I love, and ask them, are you, what is your song that you want to sing? What is it that you want to give to the planet? What is it that you most want to experience in this lifetime? And give each other a presence. Be present with each other. It's the best way to love each other, is to be present.
And to deeply listen.
Kulini.
Iris Ray Nunn, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening to the Natural Genius podcast. Please share this with anyone who came to mind, and visit us at naturalgenius.com.au. Thanks so much.